can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. It's the greatest theft in the history of the world.
The US has slapped tariffs on $250 billion worth of Chinese products and has threatened tariffs on $267 billion more. Trump invoked nationalist sentiment when he tweeted that Apple should start manufacturing iPhones in America, as this could give them a huge tax incentive. There could be zero tax, he said, urging Apple to start building new plants in America.
From the president's angle, he looks at the overall trade deficit of America. What he doesn't quite realize is that China is the assembly plant of the world.
Most components that make up the iPhone, like the touchscreen display, memory chips, and microprocessors, come from American, Japanese, Korean, and Taiwanese companies: Intel, Sony, Samsung, and Foxconn. None of the parts manufactured in China. Apple buys the components, ships them to China, while China exports the fully assembled iPhones. Yet, these appear as imports from China on its trade balance with the US.
What Apple has is the design, the marketing, the distribution. It places the order, but it doesn't produce anything. That's why Apple is so profitable. It doesn't put its money into plants and equipment and labor force. It controls the distribution network. And that's where all the money is being made.
But could America really gain much from manufacturing iPhones on their soil? A closer look reveals the true picture. The factory cost of an iPhone is around $237, an estimate from IHS Markit when iPhone 7 was released in late 2016. American parts make up the largest share of the total, with just $8.46 or 3.6% of that cost actually going to China.
If in fact there is a tariff of 25%, so Apple will be scrambling to assemble it elsewhere. Now, who do you think will benefit if that happens? South Korea, Galaxy. Samsung would be a huge beneficiary, right? Because all of a sudden iPhones will become 25% more expensive in the US.
Trump's tariffs also come at a cost for American firms which are facing potentially devastating disruptions to their businesses. In March 2018, Trump imposed a global tariff of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminium imports, adversely affecting the auto industry. One of the largest US automakers, Ford, lost $1 billion in profits, while its second quarter earnings plunged by almost 50% as sales in China fell. For General Motors, higher metals prices would add about $600 to $700 million to costs. It is also estimated that Trump's tariffs could cost nearly 400,000 American jobs.
25% is a very, very steep cost barrier to have to overcome in order to be competitive. Steel prices in the United States increased substantially, almost overnight.
Titan Steel Corporation, a family-owned business, is a global distributor specializing in tin mill and surface-critical steel products used in metal packaging in food, paint, and aerosol cans. They are a substantial exporter to over 30 countries and an importer of steel from around the world.
It impacted us in several ways. We are a major customer of the producers of our types of steel in the United States. But those prices went up as well. Whether we were purchasing from US domestic steel producers or whether we were importing, our costs went up by the same amount.
Added to the increase in costs by 25%, there is the worrying aspect of loss of jobs in the steel manufacturing industry. It is estimated that 5 US jobs will be lost for every one saved by the proposed tariffs, or about 146,000 jobs in total.
Very few manufacturers produce a finished product solely with components that they produce themselves. They get them from everywhere. And you begin with the raw materials. It could be iron, steel, aluminum, or copper. But then you're talking about semiconductors and transistors and LCDs and memory chips and everything else. So when you start putting tariffs and you think you're actually hurting China or somebody else, you're actually hurting a whole range of producers at various stages, and many of those are American companies. What people don't realize is that 60% of China's high-valued exports are actually managed by American companies. So these tariffs actually hit American companies more than they hit Chinese.
Some of these materials right here, the hinges and the screws itself, we can't buy them in the United States. We buy it from a distributor here in the US, but they source them from China. You're putting on the tape, is this because you want to...
Chad Kovarick's company, Action Craft Boats, makes high-performance, shallow-water fishing boats. Established over 2 decades ago, this small and medium-sized manufacturer operates out of a 25,000 square foot facility in Cape Coral, Florida.
So at first, when the tariffs were announced with the other countries, I was pretty excited because I knew that President Trump had the best interest in America to even the playing field out, so to speak, with raw materials and consumer goods. Once we got into it, obviously the excitement went down a little bit because you start to see it impacting you. For example, these rod holders might come from China. Again, the hinges and the screws, the latches, the door locks will come from China.
The prices have increased in the last 12 months, causing an 8% surge in the retail price of a boat.
We import stainless steel, which is a lot of hardware, screws, nuts and bolts and that stuff. We did see the spike in that, and we also seen the quality go down. We also seen aluminum that we make, our T-tops and our seats and everything from. That had went up in 2018. Very customized, elevated.
An avid boater since his teenage years, Chad hopes that the trade war would end soon.
If we don't make a true agreement and everything is settled and in writing, so to speak, I could see this hurting us a little bit more, as time goes by, especially if the raw materials keep going up, and the raw materials are more than 50% of what goes into the cost of my boat.
The damage which has been done is irreversible if you have steel-consuming industries who, as a result of being uncompetitive, make the decision to transfer their manufacturing operations to a different country. We are already seeing that in certain cases in the United States, and that is a very disturbing trend.